We'll put players on the concern meter. Where are we in our frustration with each of the players on the Charlotte Hornets roster? We'll get to that in just a moment. Plus, there's an update on your Bally sports package. How are we going to be able to watch the Charlotte Hornets later on? We'll discuss all of it today. Locked On Hornets.
We're Locked On Hornets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
In a minute, cuz we live.
It's Locked On Hornets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day. Thanks for making us your first listen. We are free and available anywhere you get your podcast, and that includes YouTube. This episode is brought to you by Prize Picks, the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNBA. Use code, all lowercase, LockedOnNBA for a first deposit match up to $100. That's Doug Branson. You can find him on his Substack, EveryHornetsBoxscore.com. I'm Walker Mail. Listen to me on WFNZ every weekday from 12 to 3 p.m. I would ask, if you're watching YouTube, I would ask really for the listeners, Doug, why he's shaking his head. But I know why. I'm going to explain it because when I hopped on the broadcast, when I hopped on our software that allows us to do this, the first thing that I hear, and then the only thing that I hear for the next 4 or 5 minutes before he hops on, is fruit salad, yummy, yummy, being sung quite well, to be honest with you, hitting the notes, putting jazz on it, getting real spicy, real sing-songy with fruit salad, yummy, yummy, only repeating that over and over again. And then he hops on, he says, hey, buddy, I'm laughing at him. And then he says, I'm going crazy. There you go, Doug. How are you doing in the winter wonderland, not so wondrous, that is Nashville, Tennessee?
Well, and I think anyone who has kids is going to immediately understand what you just said there. Fruit salad, yummy, yummy, a classic by the Wiggles. I've heard it about 1,000 times over the past week because we've been snowed in Nashville, Tennessee. That's right. I've been home for a week. Can't go anywhere because it's snowing. The roads are icy in Nashville, Tennessee. Not Buffalo, New York. Okay? Not Minnesota. Not Montana. I'm talking about Nashville, Tennessee. Has been under, and it's snowing right now. There's a blizzard outside. I will tell you something. I hate winter. I hate winter. I always have.
True.
But this just fully reinforces it. Winter hurts you. Summer would never do this to me. Yes, it would make my ass swampy, but it would never, ever subject me to what this winter weather has subjected me to. Fruit salad, yummy, yummy.
What's the concern meter for Doug Branson? You can text us. You can put your comment. You can text him on his subtext. You could actually put some comments down on YouTube or tweet at us. Locked On Hornets, Doug Branson, LOH, Walker Mail. Let's do the concern meter thing here, Doug. What player do you want to lead off with? I need you to vent about whatever player you need to in order to help you from stop the stir craziness. What player do you want to start with on the concern meter?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think we're all very concerned about the team right now. They've lost 17 of their last 18. Their only win coming very improbably against the Sacramento Kings in Sacramento, looking more and more like a miracle than it did when it first happened. So I think it's, that would be silly to do the concern meter on the team. So I thought we would focus in on a few players, a few circumstances as we get closer to the trade deadline when this team is going to have to make some decisions about a lot of these players. And so my concern meter right now, I've got two poles, two ends of the spectrum. One is Mitch Kupchak looking at his roster and assessing his playoff chances. That would be not concerned at all. Inexplicably, for the past few years, he has looked at his roster and thought about his playoff chances and went, no, I'm not really worried about it. I don't know why he felt that way, but he felt that way. So that's not very concerned at all. And then on the other end,
that might even mean that we're concerned. That we're not concerned, but we all know we probably should be. That's what that means.
Right.
Okay.
That's true. With this team right now, there is no absolutely not concerned. I don't think you can look at any player, member of the front office, member of the training staff, any usher at this point. I'm just including everyone. I just feel like you have to be a little bit concerned for them or about them at this point. So at the other end of the spectrum is Steve Clifford with veins popping out of his neck and his head, yelling at Nick Richards, Nick, set the bleeping screen. That would be all the way at the other end. A very, very that's the most concerned I've seen any human being in quite a long time.
He was over it. He's still over it. That's the perfect place to go for most concerned. What player do you want to start with here, Doug?
Okay, let's start with LaMelo Ball, obviously, right? He's just returned. A little small sample size theater of all small sample size theaters. We've got 3 games with him back. But Walker, the team is still getting smoked. And he's not playing his normal minutes, but he's getting his normal usage, and he's had a few good games, and the Hornets have really not been measurably any better than they were when he wasn't on the floor. How concerned are you about the fact that LaMelo Ball's back, but the Hornets are not?
I would rather choose Steve Clifford. Not Steve. I'm sorry. Give me the Mitch Kupchak soundbite. Okay,
I don't have a soundbite, but I have.
Gotcha. I planned this out perfectly in my brain.
Here's the thing. I just wanted to paint a picture. Listen, if you're watching on YouTube, you can see that I'm in what formerly was my office. And once I got the studios in downtown, this office is now my producer Katie's office. So look, I don't have any of my tech. I'm wearing a headset. I don't even have my normal microphone. Like, you think I've got like sounds ready to pop off? You truly are spoiled by your radio professionality that you think that I have like some fancy technical. I have been home for like 7 straight days. I have not been able to leave my home. You think I have sounds ready to rock? You're crazy.
All right, I'm Steve Clifford concerned for Doug. I am Mitch Kupchak concerned for LaMelo Ball. I think
we don't have any all-stars on this team. There you go.
Yeah, that would be great if you just wanted to do that. Honestly, great soundbite though, because that's the exact reason as to why I'm not as concerned about LaMelo. It's because there's just not much talent around him. You go back to 3 games ago when we did our Hive Live edition right after the Spurs game. So a week ago was when he came back. Now we're talking about 3 games. One of the points that I made was that he was coming back to a different team than he left on November 26th. This is not the same squad. There is no Gordon Hayward still. Brandon Miller has been out since he has returned because of the fall that he took in transition. You're talking about Mark Williams also not being there. And so now here we are with 3 players, 60% of your top 5 players on the roster not playing. Miles Bridges being hot and cold, Terry Rozier still being good, and PJ Washington underperforming offensively, and he's going to the bench. And now it's a different team. With LaMelo just a couple of games back from injury, I think what he's earned, Doug, is the benefit of the doubt that if he struggles right off of injury, that he's going to figure it out too, because he did it at the beginning of this season. And that was with a whole offseason of recovery time and only a week return before training camp. So I'm not concerned about LaMelo. It's Mitch Kupchak level for me. Yeah, for sure. I'm still concerned about the team getting destroyed despite LaMelo's return. I get that. But we all know this team has 0 margin for error. To say slim would be too much. They have 0 margin for error. And so that's why I'm not as concerned about what LaMelo's doing or really what the team is doing without Gordon, Mark, Brandon, and LaMelo's on the court.
And as we move forward with this game, I should give you a few more options that are in the middle, right? So there's Mitch Kupchak. There's a little bit concerned. There's just plain concerned. And then there's Steve Clifford. That's, very vein-poppingly concerned. So I would not put this at Mitch Kupchak. I would put this at a little concerned. And I'll tell you why. I agree with most everything you're saying there in that this is a different team, different circumstances, and LaMelo has played well. Let's just say that right off the bat. The only, I think, knock on LaMelo's play since he's been back would be the turnovers. But I would put half those on inability for players to catch a basketball near the rim. I mean, so many bobbled balls at this point by Nick Richards, Nathan Mensah. I mean, look, the level of center talent that he's playing with, that he's working these pick and rolls off of, has not been good. And then PJ Washington can't hit a 3 to save his life. And Cody Martin, same kind of situation. So it's like that's a situation of like, who is he passing to? And the other part of it, I think, can be explained by just rhythm. He's just got to get back into his groove. His timing has been a little bit off on some of these transition plays. And so all of that stuff will work itself out. But he is miles ahead of where he was when he was coming off the ankle fracture. And we saw his offense really struggle at the beginning of this season. That hasn't been a problem. He's been able to score points. He's been able to do things that we weren't really seeing early in the season when he was healthy, like get to the free throw line. So he's, in a weird way, like evolved his game while recovering from this latest ankle injury. So that's been positive to see. Here's why I am a little concerned. I want to watch this situation as it moves forward for the rest of the season, because I think we've done a lot of talk about LaMelo Ball as leader of this team, evolving into that, being a vocal leader of this team as the guy who is now going to be on the max contract, the best player in your team. Can he become also the guy in the locker room that can rally everyone together and do the things that are necessary to get wins? And that's something that I want to watch moving forward, because this team needs to play better defense. Who are they going to rely on in the locker room? Because Clifford, I think, has said everything to this point that he has to say in order to make people understand, hey, this is what's going to help us win basketball games. Who's going to step up in that locker room? Is it going to be LaMelo? Because he's doing everything on the floor right. I think that's why I'm just a little bit concerned with the fact that the Hornets are still playing poorly whilst he's back.
Okay, let's move on to a couple of other players coming up next on the Locked On Hornets podcast.
Don't go to sleep on the Hornets just yet.
How concerned are you over Mark Williams' injury? It's just flat out the injury at this point, and also PJ Washington's play since coming back from an injury. We'll get to that in just a moment. This episode is brought to you by eBay Motors. Our partners at eBay Motors have teamed up with Locked On Fantasy Basketball host Josh Lloyd to bring you some of the best fantasy picks each week, all season long. Whether you're prepping for a daily draft or scouting the waiver wire, every week we're going to provide you players that are guaranteed to fit on your roster. So let's see who Josh picked out for us on this week's eBay's Guaranteed Fit Fantasy Picks of the Week. I'm going to go with the first two who have Carolina ties. G.G. Jackson, wow. South Carolina rookie who fell to 30 something in the NBA draft is pretty late. Memphis needs shot creation, and GG can do it. He has shown flashes, and he should be someone managers can look to grab to see how Memphis deploys him. So GG Jackson. The other one here, familiar face, the sweet lefty jumper, Mason Plumlee.
Oh, yes.
Mason Plumlee is someone you should be looking to pick up.
Plum Dog millionaire.
Oh, yeah, baby. New starter for at least 4 week for the 4-week Clippers. I don't know why the analysis is constructed as it is, because then it makes me look foolish. So I'm going to try to read this again. New starter for at least 4 weeks for the Clippers, I guess is what that means. Plumlee can be a serviceable center for your fantasy team while we wait for Zubats to return. That's the analysis on Mason Plumlee. Josh Lloyd from Locked On Fantasy Basketball. Go listen to his analysis. It's a lot better than mine. He's going to help you win for your fantasy championship. And eBay Motors knows a championship team is about each player being a perfect fit. It's the same with your vehicle. If you have a personal experience with a problem with your car, go to eBay Motors right now. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you can make sure your ride stays running smoothly. Brake kits, LED headlights, roof racks, bumpers, whatever your baby needs, eBay Motors has it. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, it's guaranteed to fit your ride the first time, every time, or you get your money back. Plus, at these prices, you're burning rubber, you're not burning cash. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. eBay Guaranteed Fit, only available to U.S. customers. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. More Locked On Hornets coming up.
So I don't know how many people hung around for that break read, but you mentioned Mason Plumlee there, and he's with the Clippers right now and having a lot of fun, having a lot of success. Kelly Oubre last season, they didn't re-sign him, or last offseason. He's with the Philadelphia 76ers now, having a lot of fun. And I think that being a Hornets fan right now is a lot like, I haven't experienced this yet, but I someday will send my kid to college or whatever, space college, moon college, whatever it is, by the time my baby grows up. But I feel like it's a lot like that, right? You just you have to learn to feel happy for people leaving you and going off to experience their own thing. And so as we get to this trade deadline, maybe Terry Rozier is gone, Gordon Hayward gets bought out, whatever. You have to just learn to be happy and just wave by as they get in the car, drive off. And that's the Hornets fan experience right now.
I think it's a point of pain for Panthers fans as well, because that's been one of the problems with the last 6 years of David Tepper's tenure. It's watching guys leave the organization and be successful. And the latest example of that is Baker Mayfield having been terrible with Carolina and now going to the divisional round of the NFC playoffs. And so Baker Mayfield, that one, I know We can talk about the sicko nature, the sicko history of what it means to be a Hornets fan compared to a Panthers fan. Watching Baker Mayfield is frustrating for anybody, seeing how successful he is compared to how terrible he was last year.
Well, you make such a great point. It is better for Hornets fans because the Hornets franchise at least has the decency to bring folks in who aren't going to be future all-stars for other teams. Now, Malik Monk is threatening to do that, but he's not quite there yet. He is still a role player for that Sacramento team. So it's much easier to be happier for those players when they're not putting up all-star caliber numbers.
That's right. Or just like being a main reason, the most important position on an NFL team, and then playing that position well in order to get your team to the postseason. Yeah, but I'm fine too. I'm not singing fruit salad.
Fruit salad. I was going to say it. Fruit salad. Yummy, yummy. That's going to be the anthem from now on. When we get just as crazy as we can get about the Hornets, when the sickness turns to fever and the fever breaks, we sing only one song, and that is Fruit Salad. Yummy, yummy.
I know we need to move on. I need to tell this story because it talks about the sickness. And so last night I was at an event at UNC Charlotte, and I had a couple friends with me, and at my table for this event where they were handing out awards, I'm very appreciative of a 10 under 10 award they gave me. At my table, I wanted to move on.
Well, so you bring up, you're like, I have to bring up this story of me winning an award. Go on.
All right. It's the classic, I go to school up in Boston. Just tell me you went to Harvard. I'm just going to tell you I won the award, but it's going to be painful to say that. So a guy at the table was named Adam, and I knew his name. I knew it. And I'm saying, Adam, I know your name. How do I know you? And then he didn't even say, hey, my name is or whatever. He's like, I'm a sicko. I am a pure sicko.
Yeah.
And great guy hanging out with us all night. It was a lot of fun. He said, I do have one question, though. I have one question. I said, what's that? He said, how much do you hate Doug Branson sometimes? because sometimes he'll be continuing to talk or go on the long rant, and it's great. It is highly entertaining. I need to know how you feel. I need to know how you feel about it, because it does seem like you get really frustrated. And so I gave him the Dan Le Batard explanation that we are ourselves turned up to 10, right? Like that is the secret of the show. That is the not so secret. People realize it if you get the show. I've seen this talked about on Reddit when people talk about Locked On Hornets. They understand what the roles are here. And so that's how you win, right? We turn ourselves up to 10. And so there is zero hate behind it. There is only the product of the show that allows the sickos to keep coming back.
I'll also say, weaving back my experience here, being stuck in the house with my entire family for a week now, and you and I have been stuck together every day for the past, we've been doing this show, 4 or 5 years?
2018. August 2018.
Yeah, so almost 6 years, maybe a little more than 6 years.
5.5.
When you do that, thank you. See, that's your role on the show, is to do the actual counting. I can't.
That was really hard. That was really hard for us to get.
When you do it for that long, you find out pretty quickly whether or not you like each other. And that's the thing. I'm blessed that I like my family, and I'm blessed that I like you, because, we couldn't do this every day without that foundation of just liking each other. And that's going to get us through the debates. It'll get us through the long rants. But you have to, this is my only relationship advice is just look, love is great, but you better find somebody you like, because like's going to get you through a lot more than love will.
That's some good advice. All right, look, I say we do rapid fire Mark Williams here, just because it's an injury. I'm not. I want to keep up with the sappiness. I can do the sappiness all day. But how concerned are you over Mark Williams' injury here, Doug? Before we move on,
very, because we haven't heard a lot about it, because it evolved from. I've used the word evolve a lot on this show. I just want to recognize that. I think it's the 4th time I've said the word evolve. Well, now
it happened to me yesterday. I kept saying attractive on Wes and Walker, and I couldn't stop.
The word has lost all meaning. Fruit salad, yummy, yummy. So I am very concerned. I'll say very concerned. What are my lists here? Concerned. No, I'll say concerned, because I'm not Steve Clifford screaming at Nick Richards' set a bleeping screen concern. If they announce that he's having surgery, it immediately will go to that level. And I feel like that's where this is heading, because we haven't heard a lot about it, because it did evolve from low back contusion to just lower back. And, we've seen video of him doing some light workout stuff. So it's not like he's just been completely ghosted. That would make me super concerned. But the length of time that he spent out with this, lower backs, big guys, that just, for me, it's less about it being career threatening than it just be about ceiling threatening, right? You're talking about lower back injuries take big guys from, they'll play, 6, 7, 8 more years, but it won't be all-star level play, which is, I think, what we were all hoping for Mark Williams, that he could develop into an all-star level big defensively for sure. And lower back stuff, if it lingers, can really threaten that.
Mark Williams has consistently been placed in the future outlook of this team. Yeah. Right now, he can't come back onto the floor. And this is not one of those. This is very Gordon Hayward-esque from a couple of years ago. That was my biggest problem with, yes, clearly Gordon Hayward has already an injury history stepping onto the roster. What gets me a little more concerned is when you have this initial timetable, or it's at least now misleading. I don't know if they ever gave an initial timetable. Sometimes I can be good, sometimes I can be bad. But the fact that he tries to come back, can't do it, you feel like he's going to come back sooner, and then we continue to miss time. We just are totally in the dark on this. And you're right. Now we have to be the podcast that talks about their promising young big man with a back injury. And now what we're going to have to do is find the examples of centers that have figured out how to reach a high ceiling with back injuries. And now we have to figure out who are the centers that experience back injuries that never were the same. And now we're going to have to start doing that stuff, that if he has surgery and then we enter that mold, that is a content area that I never wanted for Locked On Hornets. I only wanted it for the other teams that had to experience that. And we're here discussing Brandon Miller, LaMelo Ball, and Mark Williams. Like, depending on what you think about Nick Smith Jr. and others, it's consistently been him as a third guy. Now, if this continues, then we can't even be so sure. Like, that's a big deal. Like, here we are trying to retool this thing. I just talked myself into Steve Clifford. Now I'm cursing at Nick Richards.
Sure. Well, when you zoom out and talk about LaMelo Ball and Brandon Miller and all the injuries that they've sustained, Brandon Miller just this season, LaMelo over the past couple of seasons, when you zoom out and understand that you're three untouchable pieces, pieces that everyone in the NBA commentary, when they're talking about this team, tearing it all down, they go, oh, those are the three you can't touch. They can't even get on the floor. Yeah, but that is.
No, please don't touch them. They'll get hurt. That's right.
Yeah, it's a fragile thing, not a talent thing. All right, PJ Washington, last one real quick. He's struggling badly. Again, his three-point percentage is in the tank. It's, when he had a good season in 2022, when they won 43 games, it was, his points per shot attempt went way up because his three-point shot was just on fire. And that regressed in the next season. He signs the contract. How concerned are you with the fact that PJ Washington, especially since returning to the bench, doesn't seem to be much of an offensive threat anymore?
No, I'm concerned. I don't know if I'm not Steve Clifford concerned, but I'm certainly more concerned than I am closer to Mitch Kupchak level. Yeah, the shot hasn't been there. I just, with PJ, everybody knows how much I love PJ. It's the joke, right? I just think the role on the team has not been figured out the last couple of years. This has been somebody that has had to adapt to so many different things. And defensively, while there might be some advanced numbers that say that the Hornets are better without him on the floor, there are, defensive rating numbers that show that he's not great. That just doesn't pass the eye test to me. I'm not saying he's out there being OG Anunoby. I don't think that. I just see so many other mistakes from everybody else, Doug. This is what I went into yesterday. It's such a terrible defensive team that I see everybody else making the mistake, and I see PJ. Like, for instance, I didn't go check this, but if you were to go see the tracking data and you go to field goal percentage for nearest defender, and when PJ's been the nearest defender, how's it looked? Like, if that existed, if you can go find that, like, for me, I wonder if PJ's would just be sky high because he's running at the player because he's the last resort while everybody else is just not doing their job. So the defensive part is frustrating because we're always going to be angry with his offense, but the offense isn't great. It's a problem. I feel like he took steps forward as a creator, I don't think you've seen that as much anymore. Like when he puts the ball on the floor, I'm not thrilled. I'm not like, oh, this is absolutely going to end up in a good possession. So it's just a little scary about the turnovers. The 3-point shot, while it was crazy hot at the beginning of the season, then you start to dive into the injuries and his role changes. And it's like, okay, well, now it's going back down. I do think that the offense needs to be a little more adaptable, right? Like that, even if so much has changed around you, the numbers still need to be better, even if it is somewhat of an excuse that everybody else has their thing figured out. Like Terry doesn't, but Terry's just a better offensive player than PJ. We know what it is. So I'm concerned. Like I would like him to play better, certainly offensively, and we'll see if he is even on the team. Like he's a prime candidate to get traded.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I would say I'm Mitch Kupchak. We don't have any all-stars on this team. That's where I am with PJ because he is who he is. He's the same player that I think they drafted. I think you had a little blip there in 2022 because everybody on that team just went supernova on offense and especially from three, and that's why they won 43 games. But apart from that, this is who he is. He's improved his rebounding slightly this year, but I don't think statistically significant enough to really make note of. The circumstances have been just as difficult for PJ as they've been for every single other player on this team. So I'm sure internally he's probably saying to himself, yeah, maybe I could have played a little bit better, but also look at everything that happened around me. He has been one of the more available pieces for the Charlotte Hornets over the past couple of seasons, so you can at least give him credit for that. But I think this is who he is, and this is why I think the Hornets were smart to play hardball in the offseason and not overpay. Because in the not overpaying, they have made him continue to be available for trade. Had they overpaid, I think it would have been impossible for them to trade him. But now it is still a tradable contract.
No, that's a good point about the tradability of that contract. The thing about the shooting was good the first 3 years. It was above 36. The 22 season you're talking about was actually the lowest the first 3 seasons. But it's all in lower volume, man. Like that's the whole part about the PJ stuff, right? Lower volume is going to be better for PJ. And I understand you can only pay a player so much if the volume is at a lower rate. But the higher the volume for PJ, the worse the efficiency gets. And so that's what's frustrating. The game that he started, the season that he started the least amount of games, that was in 2021-22. That was his most efficient season. And it was also on the least amount of attempts by two. Like right. It's just...
But it was, again, it was a 3-point shooting, right? Because, I mean, clean the glass.
The first 3 years, yeah.
Yeah, the clean the glass has him at, he was 52% from three in that 21-22 season. Effective field goal percentage was above average. The only season he's had an effective field goal percentage above average. But he was still 36% from the rim. That was 21st percentile. The next season, last season, he was 27% at the rim. That's 12th percentile. This season, 26% at the rim. That's 12th percentile. A little bit better in the short mid, just a little bit above average. But he was better last season in the short mid when he was, the starting feature piece for the Hornets. And I mean, I'm just saying, like, he is who he is essentially at this point. I don't think that to expect him to be, a different player at this point would be reasonable. And I think the fact that they played hardball and got that contract down, which some people criticize, some people were like, no, give him the bag. He was.
I mean, I did. I mean, it's pretty clearly right here. I'm the guy, wanted him to get more, understood why he would get more. But no, he hadn't lived up to it. No, he hasn't. The 60% thing, that's what I see here, too. When that year you keep talking about, he shot 60% from twos. That's an outlier. That's that's the big thing in that year. That's a monster difference. That would be huge, honestly. That's something most people aren't talking about. It is a lot of the threes, but my goodness gracious. That 60% year was the outlier from twos. So that would be great to see that again, but it's an outlier. All right, we're already going over. Let's move on. Coming up next on the Locked On Hornets podcast.
Don't go to sleep on the Hornets just yet.
Let's talk about the Bally Sports update. Amazon now buys Bally. Hopefully it will improve our viewing experience, but it does mean some other changes for the negative are on the horizon. We'll get to that in just a moment. This episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. Prize Picks is the largest daily fantasy sports platform in North America. It's the easiest and most exciting way to play DFS. It's just you against the numbers. Instead of battling thousands of other players, including pros and sharks, you pick more than or less than on 2 to 6 player stat projections, and then you can watch the winnings roll in. If you want to play alongside some Prize Picks favorite players too, you got celebrities, you have rapper Meek Mill in there, you have comedian Andrew Schultz. You can now find community plays under the promos tab of the app to view entries from some of the biggest names in the Prize Picks community each and every week. Prize Picks even offers a reboot policy so that your entries stay in play even if one of your players gets injured. For football and basketball games, if you have a player who exits the game in the first half and doesn't return in the second, that player is rebooted. Prize Picks is the only daily fantasy sports platform with an injury insurance policy. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNBA. Use code LockedOnNBA for a first deposit match up to $100. prizepicks.com/LockedOnNBA. Use code LockedOnNBA for a first deposit match up to $100. One more segment to go. Locked On Hornets. Doug, this is kind of your wheelhouse. I know you're really interested in the Bally Sports package, right? It's been a terrible viewing experience for the Hornets viewer. It has been, garbage, trash. They deserve all of the negative commentary surrounding them. Has Amazon come in to save us, and just how much? What does it look like now that Amazon is a part of the deal?
Bezos, please save us. I don't know, I think is the unfortunate answer. I think we're going to have to wait and see on a lot of this. But the news is that Amazon did buy a piece of Diamond Sports Group, which is the kind of conglomerate that owns Bally's. And essentially, they're going to come in and help prop up Bally as they go through this bankruptcy procedure. They're essentially coming in as the savior to keep Bally's moving forward. And so what does it mean for you as the viewer? Well, if you're local, it means that you may have an opportunity to watch these games on the Amazon Prime platform, but it won't mean that you'll get to do that for your Amazon Prime subscription price. I think there's going to probably be an add-on situation where you can pay some number of dollars. That'll be interesting to see, right? Is it going to be 20, which is what Bally wanted from you to stream through the Bally app? But you'll get to do it through Amazon's system, which I think will be a more stable system, will be a better experience for you because Amazon essentially owns the web with their AWS servers, and those are super reliable. They're not 100% reliable. AWS does go down, like the AWE server will go down, and half the websites in the world will go down all of a sudden. So it's not 100% guarantee, but it's way better than the 10, 20% reliability that folks have been getting used to with the Bally app. So I guess this is good news in the sense that in the short term, it could provide more stability for the viewing experience. But, I think it would have been better long term to see Bally go away, to see DSG, the whole regional sports network idea to go away and force leagues into alternatives. This is great for Amazon because they get to back in a very cheap way. They get to back into the local NBA experience because the NBA right now is negotiating a new TV deal that is sure to include one of these streamer services, whether it be Apple or Netflix or maybe Amazon. They were all vying for a piece of that pie. Well, Amazon gets to go to the sort of the big lots and pull a piece of this off the shelf for really cheap. And but they've got to deal with all the headache, I'm sure, of working with some of this Bally backend. But yeah, it's good news if you love stability, if you love the broadcast crew for Bally's. There's not going to be any upsetting of the Eric Collins, Del Curry's apple cart, if you will. But I think long-term, I would like to see the teams pushed further into, hey, let's get some local broadcast rights. Let's get more people watching this product and get off this streaming-only idea.
Well, and that's the really well thought out big picture style of this. If you are interested in what it's going to look like, I think for me, the bar, as we've talked about, man, like they were so bad you couldn't watch the games at the beginning of this season. Just flat out weren't delivering you the product that you were paying for.
It's your one job.
That will happen now. You're gonna be able to watch the games. And so while it was a terrible viewing experience, and you're just asking, hey, is this thing gonna work? Yes, it's going to work now because Amazon has it, and it's not just Bally's being this bankrupt thing. So at least as we know it,
for next season, let's be clear. Nothing changes. Nothing changes this season. This is going to start with 24-25. And then I think what will be interesting is after that point, do teams renegotiate with Amazon Bally, or do they make decisions that I think would be better for their product? Like, I think it would be better for the Hornets not to take the short-term, maybe medium-sized bag of cash from Jeff Bezos and Bally, or what's left of Diamond Sports Group, and instead say, hey, why don't we develop our own system while at the same time leveraging a local broadcast contract that might bring us less in the short term, but long term we're growing the product because more people can see it easier, and they don't have the frustrations. Because look, when people get frustrated with Bally's, they also get frustrated with the Hornets. They don't understand that they don't totally understand that it's not the same thing.
Yeah.
So, do you want your product consistently associated with stuff that doesn't have 100% reliability? I'm not so sure.
Yeah. So no, you're right. It is next year that this is going to take place, but yes, long term, everything Doug talked about, there's not a certain answer. We'll see what happens, but next year you will at least get to watch your team, which at very base level, you needed to figure out how to give that to your customers that are paying $20 a month to just watch the Charlotte Hornets and maybe another team that you just put in there that they don't care about. Same thing with the Hurricanes too, that are more interested in NHL.
And maybe that cost does go down because now you have Amazon behind it, who, I'm sure DSG was doing the numbers and going, okay, we've got to get $20 from some number of people in order to keep the lights on, right? So now that Amazon is propping it up, maybe that cost comes down to get more people back into that system. So again, short term, but as we've seen with, I don't know, I mean, if you've taken an Uber recently, if you've gotten on a scooter, if you've paid for a subscription, I'm sure you've seen that these things are just creeping up, because that's how they do. They get you in on the lower price and then, steadily increase it as certain economic conditions change. And so that's why, I think it would be better for the long-term health of the product if it were on a broadcast network that generally people could get for free. That would be better, because look, this stuff is going to get expensive. You are going to have local fans are going to have to start making the same kinds of choices that people that don't live in the local market of their favorite teams are making. Like me, I live in Nashville, Tennessee. I don't subscribe to the NFL package because I don't care enough about the Panthers to pay that amount of money to watch them every week. I think that's a pretty good business decision based on their recent play. I am a sicko when it comes to the Hornets, so I do pay for League Pass. I have become a soccer fan, and I want to watch Nashville FC, and I want to watch their away games, so I pay for the MLS Pass. But I'm making decisions because all of this stuff costs a lot of money. And so that's what local fans are going to have to start doing if more and more stuff moves off into streaming.
And it does look like we could see that you have to pay for more money depending on the decisions that you make in the next 5 years or so. Joe Ovius was talking about this too on the Kyle Bailey show, if you want to go check that out on WFNZ. Doug's going to join me later on today. That's the hope. At least we've been trying to get this weekly launch off the ground, but things happen. Doug's snowed in. We have guests that keep finagling when they're going to go on.
Fruit
Doug's
salad,
joining
yummy,
us today at 12:45. That'll do it for Locked On Hornets. Thanks for making us your first listen. We're free and available anywhere you get your pods. That includes YouTube. Doug can go back to listening to some Wiggle songs and hopefully recover over the weekend. Hopefully the snow, the ice, it melts so he can get out and experience some fresh air somewhere like miles away from his home, and we can have a healthier show on Monday. Until then, have a great weekend.
Do the propeller.